we have developed during these years different models that allow us to induce intestinal inflammation and at the same time develop the biomarkers.
Okay.
So we can measure if a nutraceutical is effective or is not effective.
Welcome to the Poultry Podcast Show. We're being joined by Dr. Guillermo Tellez from the University of Arkansas. Welcome to the show, Guillermo.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit about your background and what you do currently for the University of Arkansas.
Well, I'm originally from Mexico City. I got my DBM degree at the National Autonomous University in Mexico City. I graduated in 86, and just after graduation, I continue with my master in science in avian pathology. And soon after graduation, I had the fortune to meet Dr. Billy Hargis. He accepted me to get into his laboratory. So I moved to Texas A&M, and under his direction, I worked on my PhD in veterinary microbiology. After graduation in 1992, I come back to UNAM, College of Veterinary Medicine in Mexico City, where I worked for a total of 16 years. And in 2001, things are, it's incredible how things work. But Billy was offered the direction of the Poultry Head Lab here at the University of Arkansas. And to my surprise, he called me, and just to let me know that he moved from A&M to Arkansas. And at that time, I took my sabbatic in Mexico City at UNAM. And he says, awesome, why don't you come during your sabbatic? I said, Billy, I can't. I had too many students, too many responsibilities here. I'm on sabbatic, but I'm keeping my line of research working. And he convinced me. He said, oh, come on, come for 3 months, take a break. And I did. That's what I told my wife. I said, okay, let's go to Arkansas for 3 months. And we came with our kids. They were at that time for almost 4 and almost 2 years. So we drove from Mexico City to Arkansas. And when I arrived here, Billy moved with all his graduate and undergraduate students, graduate students, the undergraduates, they stay in A&M, finish, and then they join. But it was 11 students, so he needed help. He offered me to stay, and little did I know when I decided to come, it was going to be one-way ticket.
It was a one-way drive. You stayed in Arkansas.
Yes, the toughest decision of my life. I never imagined I was so happy. I was.
UNAM is an excellent institution. Yeah, it'd be hard to walk away from.
Yes, to me, it's like my. I grew up in UNAM because my mother took us there when she was studying and doing this graduate study. So UNAM for me was my life, and it was very, very tough, very difficult. But when I look at Fayetteville at the university, I look at my kids, and comparing with Mexico City, I took the offer. I took the decision to stay here, go back with my job at UNAM, and been here since late 2001. It's amazing. It's almost been
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah,
here.
It's crazy.
Together I've been somehow direct and indirect been working with Dr. Billy Hargis for over 30 plus years. And, Karen, I cried for a year missing my job at Mexico. But today I can tell you that that decision was the best decision in terms professionally, personal, familiar. We grow here in Arkansas, and together we have created a fantastic program on gut health here at the Poultry Health Laboratory at the University of Arkansas. Our main areas of research has been always gut health and the making of probiotics, prebiotics, organic acids, in other words, alternatives. We were ahead of our time, actually, back even since A&M time. We were always working to create alternatives to antibiotics to solve mainly salmonella problems. Billy used to say always, salmonella has been good to us.
Right.
And it is true. We have been very fortunate working towards solutions for this pathogen and other pathogens in this area. Now we have developed and patented several probiotics that have been commercialized internationally. And we have a tremendous group of people here. We have students that come and go, but we can keep growing in this area of research now, developing models to evaluate intestinal inflammation. We need to induce, we realized that we needed to have models that we could use to induce intestinal inflammations so we can test different nutraceuticals, probiotics, prebiotics, organic acids, enzymes, essential oils, phytobiotics that have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, but we needed to have a model. And we have developed during these years different models that allow us to induce intestinal inflammation and at the same time develop the biomarkers.
Okay.
So we can measure if a nutraceutical is effective or is not effective in any of these different models. So our area of research has been initially producing alternatives to antibiotics, now developing models to induce gut inflammation and the biomarkers. Together with all this combination of things during all these years, we have now, we are very busy here. A lot of folks from the industry, not only here in the US, but companies from Central, South America, and even Europe comes to our lab to run tests for their products with all these different models that we have for intestinal inflammation. Depending on what we want, we offer the different models and the that's how we establish different protocols and the experimental designs. So kind of that's basically that's how we've been doing during these years.
Right. So in terms of biomarkers that you're testing, I'm sure that varies by what challenge model you're working with. But just kind of give our readers an idea of how that would work. Like, let's say in a salmonella challenge model, how are you evaluating the effectiveness of a given product?
So that's a very good question. For salmonella, we have several models for salmonella infections here in the laboratory. We have the most typical one is salmonella enteritis, but we have a challenge with salmonella typhimurium, Heidelberg, Reader, Anatum, and of course, we have to do in these trials recovery of the bacteria. So we usually incorporate the cultures that do quantitative and subjective quantification of the incidence of the salmonella. But if in terms of biomarkers, salmonella, as other gram-negative bacteria, have these LPS, lipopolysaccharides, in their cell wall that are extremely toxic and stressful for the intestines of animals in general. By inducing inflammation, these bacteria it's causing a lot of oxidative stress at the level of the intestine. Now, LPS, not only from salmonella, other gram-negative bacteria too, will have similar effect, and when they cause inflammation in the gut, in the intestinal tract, there is a disruption of tight junction proteins. The tight junction proteins are those proteins that keep the enterocytes together. We must remember that the gut, the epithelial cells in the gastrointestinal tract is a simple epithelial cell. So it's just one cell joined to another by these tight junction proteins. It's a very complex number of different proteins that is a cement, keep together the enterocytes. And when there is a stress, oxidative stress, and inflammation, there is a disruption of this cement, these tight junction proteins. Now, the implication of this disruption in the intestinal tract has a tremendous impact, because we must remember that the intestinal tract is basically a tube that is inside the animals, and is isolating the external environment from the internal environment. It's just like the skin, but it's inside. And this simple epithelial, now, inside the intestine, we have what is called the microbiome, a tremendous, extraordinary number of microorganisms, not only bacteria. We have all forms of life on Earth. We have bacteria, prokaryotes, we have fungi, we have archaea, and this is a very complex ecosystem that is complements the biology of all animals. Without this microbiome, there could be no life as we know it on Earth. That is why it's been called the second genome of animals. And as a matter of fact, the number of microorganisms, just now, if we talk about just bacteria, don't talk about the viruses or the fungi or the archaea, we just concentrate on bacteria. It is estimated that for every cell, somatic cell of an animal, regardless if it's a mammalian, avian, reptile, aquatic, terrestrial, it is estimated that the proportion of somatic cells with bacteria is 10:1. So, Karen, that means that we animals are a super organisms. And when we look at this proportion 10:1, it's not only the number of bacteria versus somatic cells, it is also the genes. It is estimated 300,000 genes in this microbial population that colonize the gut. You consider 23,000 genes of a human, 25,000 of a fruit fly. So the proportion is not only in terms of numbers, but genes. Now, without these bacteria, there's no life. They complement the biology. They regulate the physiology, the biology, and even our mood, the state of happiness. It's so complex. It's incredible how these microorganisms regulate. Yes, animals, we provide a place where they can live, and we feed them. And in exchange of this, the exchange, in this symbiotic relationship, they basically entrain the immune system, and all the endocrine system is also regulated by these microorganisms. Now, 10 to the 12 to 10 to the 14 bacteria. It is a big
number.
It's a 1 followed by 12, 14 zeros, depending on the age and the species, but it's a lot of bacteria. That's the proportion 10:1. Now, if there is a disruption of this tight junction, it is it is a phenomenon known as leaky gut. Very, very well in the last years. It's something that you can read and see.
Lots of articles explaining that. Yes.
Leaky gut syndrome is not other thing that bacteria that is passing from the intestine inside to the blood, go to the portal vein, and from the portal vein to the liver, and then you can have systemic chronic inflammation. So if you look at alcoholism, the chronic alcoholism, alcohol is toxic for the hepatocytes, no doubt. But alcohol also disrupts these tight junction proteins. So people that have chronic alcoholism, it's eventually they will die by that liver damage, destruction of the liver, no doubt. But in the meantime, these people are getting translocation. It's what is called bacterial translocation, bacteria that are getting from the gut to the blood. And these people are in chronic constant inflammation. And that has a tremendous impact, and we can talk about that more if you want. But in terms of salmonella, it is by the inflammation that causes the intestine disruption. It's causing this leakage to the blood. One of the biomarkers that we are using, and we use it for all our models that induce gut inflammation, because at the end of the day, regardless of the inflammation, the stress that is causing inflammation, you are mentioning a bacteria, biological stressor, but it could be physical, nutritional, environmental, psychological stress. I mean, at the end of the day, the effect of oxidative stress is the same. It's going to induce inflammation. And in the case of, Karen, the reason we're so interested in evaluating and studying gut inflammation is because the gut regulates everything. If today it's recognized that 90% or more of all diseases in animals or humans, from metabolic diseases, autoimmune diseases, inflammatory, all types of cancers, but you name it, you name it. Most of 90% of all diseases are related with gut inflammation. Why? Because the gut is the largest or immune organ of the body of all animals. In the case of birds, we even have the bursa fabricio, which is a primary lymphoid organ, part of the gut,
attached to the gut,
gastrointestinal lymphoid tissue. It is there for avian species, but we can say that it is estimated 80% of all immune cells in animals are located in the gut, in the gastrointestinal, in the submucosa, just below the enterocyte. In this lamina propria, we have a tremendous number of inflammatory cells. And there is a reason why they are there. The gastrointestinal tract is not only responsible for the absorption and the digestion of nutrients, they need to tolerate the penetration of these nutrients and water. They need to allow the tolerance, and at the same time keeping potential pathogens and all the microbiome that is in the lining of the gut. So that is, if you have gut inflammation, Karen, then you're going to have this effect in gut permeability and leakage of bacteria, viruses, fungi into the blood, which is going to cause chronic systemic inflammation. And from there, you name it, every single tissue, organ is going to be affected. When you have chronic inflammation, which is produced by stress, and what causes stress? Well,
it's a long list.
Exactly. And you mentioned salmonella, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the same effect. Rupture of tight junction proteins, bacterial translocation, and now to get to the answer to your question, we've been using a biomarker that is dextran. And dextran, it's a sugar, it's a molecule with a very high molecular weight, 4 kilodaltons. Normally, this compound is not absorbed. This compound is linked to a fluorescent protein, and then when you give it oral, you administer this compound dextran to an animal by oral dosage, which is a dose that we have estimated. We have done so many optimization of the dose, of the time, and then you can take a blood sample of the animal, so it's not terminate, and with a fluorescent spectrophotometer, you can determine the concentration of dextran that is in the serum of the animal. So it's a fantastic biomarker that allows you to see the level of integrity, gut integrity, or disruption. It's very simple, not terminal, and it will allow you to know with any stressor if there is a disruption, if there is a inflammation in the gut that is going to be related to bacterial translocation. In this case, translocation, penetration of dextran into the blood, and we can measure and determine how much of this compound is getting into the blood. So it is one of the biomarkers, but you can use, Karen, in the same tenor, other biomarkers that can measure oxidation or antioxidant activity. So, for example, superoxide dismutase is another biomarker that we use, or you can use other cytokines in the serum. You can also we can determine also not only the level of different biomarkers, oxidative biomarkers, integrity biomarkers like MUC2. MUC2 we can also determine with the ELISAs, but at the same time, most of these biomarkers, we've been using molecular tools to determine the expression of the gene expression of different biomarkers, tight junction proteins, or cytokines, or antioxidant compounds that matches what is happening in the serum. If you want to use the concentration of or the level of gene expression of different compounds. So these are different biomarkers from the using molecular tools or serological tools that allow us to evaluate gut inflammation. For the example that you gave, salmonella, for example.
So you mentioned that a lot of your past work has been in the area of probiotics. So in terms of maintaining that gut integrity, our market is flooded in terms of poultry antibiotic alternatives. We're continually moving in that direction. So how do those probiotics function in terms of maintaining that gut integrity? What is it doing in terms of the microflora? I think a lot of people get confused when they hear all of these terms. So I think it's always a good reminder to be like, okay, wait, this is the job of this part of this. So in your work in probiotics, what do you see as their key role?
Right. Well, again, we could talk for a long time on this area of probiotics, because at least there are two different kinds of probiotics. Lactic acid bacteria, which are considered here in the US. The USDA has regulated and differentiated what is a probiotic. Usually is related to lactic acid bacteria, or those probiotic bacteria that get into the feed, now known as direct feed microbials. And the difference between them is very clear. Probiotics are administered in the drinking water because lactic acid bacteria are temperature sensitive. They cannot tolerate
die in a feed mill.
And direct feed microbials, on the other hand, are most of the direct-fed microbials are classified bacillus spores, bacillus-based spores that are very tough in terms of environmental temperature or different other environmental stressors. So we have the lactic acid bacteria, where you have bifidobacterium and lactobacillus and enterococcus. Temperature sensitive, they must be administered in the drinking water. Some commercial products have used ways to protect them, and they claim that they can tolerate pelletization. But most of the most utilized direct-fed microbials are bacillus spore-based probiotics with bacillus strains. Now, these are both gram-positive bacteria, and they have in their cell wall very different mechanisms. They use different mechanisms, and we can talk about differentiation of the mechanism of action between lactic acid bacteria or bacillus. They have different methods or mechanism of action. However, something that they both have in common is, and they have shown to have antioxidant properties. They produce antibacterial compounds that are selected for gram-negative pathogens, salmonellas, campylobacter, clostridiums. They also have a tremendous effect training the immune system. Several years ago, a lot of publication in Europe showed that kids, girls or boys born from C-sections, still are under sterile condition, they develop later on allergies and asthma problems. And this was related because avoiding the natural birth, it is at birth in mammals through the vaginal canal, or in birds or reptiles. They must pick the bacterial from the mother in the terms of the vaginal canal in mammals, or immediately sampling the environment. In terms of birds or reptiles, they immediately start sampling and colonizing. They start eating the feces of the mother and the nest, dirt, grass. Karen, it is a crucial moment, a very short window.
Very short window to colonize the gut.
Not only the gut, all the mucosas, ocular, genitourinary, respiratory, gastrointestinal tract, all the mucosas must be colonized at birth. If it doesn't happen at birth, it's too late. The consequences are going to be disastrous forever, basically. These kids will develop this, and these bacteria are so important for training the immune system. The cells, innate or acquired, B cells, T cells, and all the innate cells, macrophages, heterophils or neutrophils, they must be trained by these bacteria that are colonized different mucosas in the animal. That's why today most gynecologists, after a C-section, they use swabs of the vagina of the mother to impregnate all the mucosas of the baby. It has to be at hatch. So these probiotic bacteria must be delivered as soon as possible, particularly under commercial conditions in our industry, the poultry industry, where millions of chickens are hatching.
They're hatched in a hatchery.
Exactly.
No, it's close to a hen.
That's right. You got it. So early the establishment of this probiotic is crucial because they need to train the immune cells. They are important for the development of the maturation of the enterocytes and the production of enzymes. So these bacteria, probiotics, not only have antibacterial properties, antioxidants, they have immune modulation properties. They regulate not only the maturity of the immune cells, but they can also, if there is an infection, they can help and overstimulate some of the B cell, T cells, and other inflammatory cells to combat the infection, or they can prevent, alleviate diarrheas or constipation. They have so many mechanisms of actions. Now, in terms of not only the effect on immune cells, immune system, and the cascade of cytokines, it is amazing to see how these probiotic bacteria can have different effects. If you have an infection, reducing the motility of the gastrointestinal tract, of if somebody has constipation, can alleviate the constipation. So they have different mechanism of actions, and they also, particularly bacillus-based probiotics, they are also producing enzymes that are known to improve digestibility. Now, what is so important is because, as you have mentioned before, the poultry industry is pennies.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yes, you're a business of pennies.
And the producer profit is going to be by not only the weight of the animal, but also how much feed it's going to consume. Because 70% of the cost of production is the feed.
Right.
If you can improve digestibility and reduce the feed conversion when you are producing more meat from vegetable protein, that's why feed conversion it's also known as the money saver because of this. So improving the digestibility of the diet ingredients will improve the feeding conversion, body weight, and that's another very important mechanism of action. So of these probiotics, mostly bacillus, although lactic acid bacteria are also very important for absorption. That's another mechanism of action of toxins. And in terms of mycotoxins, they play a very important role reducing the absorption of different toxins, particularly mycotoxins, into the system. So those are the most important mechanisms of action of probiotics, Karen.
That's great. That was a good explanation. In terms of like the future of antibiotic alternatives, since this is sort of your area of expertise in gut health, what are the next, sort of the next compounds, or where is your research headed in the future?
There is not such thing as a silver bullet to try to control salmonella infections or necrotic enteritis or other related foodborne pathogens. Today, companies, not only the United States, but also the most successful companies that have completely eliminated antibiotics from their practices because of consumer pressures. Because, in Europe, there are laws that have restrictions. I mean, they are banned.
Yes.
Since 2006. In the US or in Brazil, for example, there are not, it's not regulated with that power. They don't have to do it. Brazil has become, for over 10 years, the number one export country of broiler chicken in the world, just by listening the demands of countries in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, that the consumers were asking for a product with no residues of antibiotics. And the reason is clear. We can talk about that, why it happened, but here in the US, there are no regulations.
Yeah. It's just consumer demand.
And yet you go to any supermarket in the United States and you are going to see products from different companies labeled antibiotic-free. Or you go to fast food restaurants, you go to Chick-fil-A or you name it, and you're going to see Subway, and you have posters and with the advertisement, and our products are antibiotics. So there is no need of legislation because it's the consumer. The pressure of the consumer is so high that companies, these restaurants, have to put pressure in the producers, in the Tysons or different big companies, the suppliers. Either you give me a product with no antibiotics, or
I'm not buying from you, right? Yeah, somebody will give them what they want. That's what our industry has done. We have given them what they asked for.
That's what Brazil did, and Brazil is not the number one producer of chicken in the US, but it's the number one exporter because what they listen and they provide to the consumer what they want. And the US has not been able to catch Brazil yet. It may, but not yet. And it's changing today. 60% of the poultry industry in the United States has switched to antibiotic free.
Absolutely.
Now, the most successful companies have to use current not only one compound. That's what I said. There's not in right. They have to use, it's a program, an integrated program, and the success. And I know that there is a common denominator in these companies: biosecurity, genetics, free from salmonellas, mycoplasmas. And they usually have to use a combination of different nutraceuticals, not just one. They have to use probiotics, prebiotics, organic acids, coccidia vaccines, or other phytogenics to combat coccidia. I know a company in Mexico that it's the first number producer in Mexico, and they are even exporting chicken because they can and other products because they don't not only produce chickens. By changing, these are integrated programs, Karen, that not only just one product, but it's a combination of it's a management. And they I know, for example, Pilgrims in Mexico, they have created a brand called Select, Chicken Select. And you see this in the supermarkets. And it's antibiotic-free, non-antibiotics at all. And I have seen the results, because what people think is there's no way my cost of production is going to be too high by using all these compounds versus antibiotics. That is not true. It is breaking the paradigms, the concept that those programs will be more expensive, because at the end of the day, current chickens are healthier, stronger, and you have premium value when you sell this kind of products in the market. And people is choosing people that have the economic power. They buy these products, and they offer to these restaurants which are eager to get this product. So that's in my experience. I have seen it not only in companies in the United States, but in Central and South America too.
Right. Excellent. Well, this has been a great discussion on the sort of industry trends in terms of gut health and these sort of alternatives to antibiotics. Let's shift to kind of a fun question. What do you like to do for hobbies there in Northwest Arkansas? What do you do in your spare time?
Yeah, we, my kids and I love to run, bike, swim.
There's a lot of biking there in Northwest Arkansas.
Yes. Northwest Arkansas has, thanks to the Walton family, it's the paradise now for mountain biking. So we do a lot of that. And lately, I also been doing some wall climbing. It's fun. Yeah, it's and fasting. I am enjoying implementing. I have developed a hunger for fast, and it's incredible. I'm learning a lot, Karen, about how all these benefits on terms of health and other properties that
Fascinating. So I know that you guys have a lot of students that come there through your lab, just like we do at UGA. What are some tips that you would give people coming into poultry health and animal research? What's one great piece of advice that you could give someone who's just entering this type of area?
Well, first thing is they must read a book that is called The Human Superorganism. It was written by Dr. Dieter. It will provide you an extraordinary concept of the power that these microbiomes plays not only in the GI tract but all other mucosas. It is I highly recommend also to all students get into the biology of the power of mitochondria. These organelles in the cells are crucial, and they are mitochondria. Basically, are bacteria that billions of years ago
Got sucked into a cell.
Symbiotic relationship, fantastic, and they change everything. I mean, you can divide history before and after mitochondrial incorporation, and they change everything. Students must learn and know and evaluate and study different ways of evaluating mitochondrial function, because mitochondria are basically they are not only the power cell, the power source of cells. They play an incredible role as signaling the environment, what's happening in the environment. And it's really, so Karen, once again, stress, any kind of stress is going to be picked up by the mitochondria in the cells, and everything is going to change. The mitochondria are going to change and are going to regulate the immune system and prepare the animal for either defend or be happy, be in allostasis and grow and reproduce. So I encourage students to look and studying and reading a lot of mitochondrial function. There is a great book that was written by Nick Lane. It's called Power, Sex, and Suicide, and it's all about mitochondria. It's an incredible area that I encourage students to look at, evaluate, because everything is related. As Nick Nail says, mitochondria rules the world. I would say bacteria rules the world. Several years ago, I wrote a paper for that I call Prokaryotes versus Eukaryotes. Who is hosting whom? It was a hypothesis article in Frontiers, published in Frontiers, but when you look and see all the power and the mechanisms and that these bacteria give to animals, you wonder, are we hosting them?
Right. Are they're really
They are hosting us. Who's hosting?
They're the puppet master in the background, probably.
Exactly. Well, so it's a fascinating area, evaluating, studying microbiomes, mitochondria, particularly when you are getting into gut health, because the gut, everything is related to gut.
Well, those are two great book recommendations. Hopefully everybody can check those out. I think we could all learn, even for our own personal health, in terms of how the microbiome functions and improve your own health and mood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. And quantum biology, Karen. Quantum biology, if you want to understand how mitochondria, how bacteria works, how life evolve, and how we become what we are and where we're going, we must also, I encourage students to look and read some of the, we don't need to be nuclear physicists to try to understand. Nobody understands quantum physics. It is very complicated. But there is a very good book I recommend to everybody that is going to give a very, the basics to understand quantum biology, because everything is regulated at the microscopic level of quantum biology, and not only quantum physics. Biology, the whole biology is regulated by quantum mechanics. And there is this book I highly recommend also. It's called Life on the Edge, by a couple of nuclear physicists. One of them, they have even Jim Al-Kahali has a program in Amazon. It's fantastic. Understanding quantum biology is going to change the concept of how you see life, and it's going to help a lot students that are getting into this area of research.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Guillermo, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for everybody tuning in to the Poultry Podcast Show.
Oh, thank you very much, Karen, for hosting me.
Yes.